Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler for UFC 303. As the main event is very interesting for a couple reasons. One, Conor McGregor's coming back again. Let's be real here. Conor McGregor has had more comebacks than Dustin Poirier has had championship opportunities. Like, that sounds like a dig, but I'm being genuinely serious. What comeback are we on already? I like Conor, but Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler as a fight at this point has almost become a meme. And I feel like it has. Michael Chandler, as much as I do like Michael Chandler, I'm going to be flaming him a little bit because he's given Arman Tsarukyan a little bit of shit for not wanting to fight Islam Makhachev. He says, and I'm going to try to get this quote right, but I'll put it right here for anybody who doesn't believe me. Michael Chandler says, "I can't believe you said no. If I was in that position, I would say yes. This sport moves quickly." If that is not the kettle calling the cauldron black, you took 2 years out of your career to chase a money fight against Conor McGregor. I don't have a problem. A bag's a bag. You probably are going to be adopting another child. Honestly, you are a great human being. I understand people are starting to give you crap for that. I don't understand there. The only thing that I'm giving you crap for is, one, saying that about Arman Tsarukyan. I get it. In most cases, I would agree with you. And two, you genuinely seem too good of a dude. And if I had to pick a dude to be like a Kristen Bale American Psycho in the UFC, 100% I think you might have killed somebody. It would be you, Michael Chandler. Not because you're a bad dude, but because you're too good of a human being. But brother, you waited 2 years to get a fight with Conor McGregor. It has now become a meme of you trying to chase down this fight. I've been talking about this. Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler has reached the point that the only way that you can promote this fight, and I do think it's going to work, I do think this is going to be a very bought pay-per-view because of one person, Conor. Conor McGregor is now he's the only selling point. He's not that he's the main selling point. He is the only selling point. Because Michael Chandler, whenever he goes into a press conference or goes into an interview and he starts saying some stuff over, well, I'll KO him in the first round. I'm going to show him how the UFC has changed in his years that he's been gone. What have you been doing? You lost to Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier. You beat Dan Hooker and Tony Ferguson, okay? I would argue, I would call this a Michael Chandler comeback as well. It's been that long. The only reason that you're still ranked at lightweight is because the UFC thought that Conor McGregor was going to come back at 155 and he was going to beat you and then he was going to become a champion. Not a champion, he was going to get into that championship contender picture. That's the real reason. Michael Chandler's a company man. Listen, get yourself a partner that is as loyal to you as Michael Chandler is to that fucking bag, dude. The UFC is going to do him a favor for this. Even if he loses, they're going to be like, rip to Michael Chandler, give him a money fight, give him somebody that he can KO. But the whole reason that I'm talking about this is Daniel Cormier, Chael Sonnen, an inspiration for this channel if you haven't already been able to tell in the comment sections and all of that, has been talking about, hinting at the idea that Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler is for a belt. Now this is, I hope they aren't gonna just make a random belt, like the Notorious belt. I don't think that's gonna be the case. If they do it, and honestly, I wouldn't even mind if they did it, a 165-pound belt, a super lightweight, a light welterweight. I like super lightweight a little bit better. To me, that rolls off the tongue a little bit. Make a 165-pound title. Move 170 to 175 and keep 185. That's all you would have to do. I've talked about a 165 title multiple times, but if you haven't watched that video, let me explain something to you, weight classes in the UFC. If you don't watch other combat sports, then this is going to be very weird to you. So the UFC goes 125, 135, 145, 155 normally, okay? This is pretty normal. And then from welterweight all the way to heavyweight, for whatever reason, I assume the person who's doing the weight classes for the UFC must be dyscalculic or something, or also has a little bit of the tism. Listen, tism recognizes tism. I get it. Numbers can be hard sometimes. But how did we go from every 10 pounds, 10-pound increments, makes perfect sense. People are different human beings at 10 pounds. If you ever cut weight before, you know this. So we go from 155 all the way to 170. I understand that's an extra 5 pounds, and people who don't realize how big 5 pounds is really. To give y'all an example of this, 170 to 155 is like Dan Hooker all the way up to Kamaru Usman. Okay, like that's the comparison we got to draw. The reason I didn't name Islam Makhachev is every single Dagestani fighter is a weight bully. I don't mean that in a bad way. In my mind, if you are going to go through the horrific weight cut to get down to 155, then I don't. If you can make weight, I don't care. If you're missing weight, if you're like a Jalen Turner, yeah, they should probably be kicked out of the division. I really do believe we should forcefully kick some UFC fighters out of certain divisions because you're just too damn big. Jalen Turner. But how is it we go from 155 to 170, okay? And then we keep the 15-pound discrepancy and we go all the way up to 185. Okay? Okay, fine. We'll keep 15 pounds. 15 pounds. That makes sense, right? So that means the light heavyweight's 200 pounds, right? Because 15 pounds, that makes sense, right? No. 205. 205 is the light heavyweight. Okay. And anything above that is heavyweight, but for some reason we are the only combat sport that puts a limit on heavyweight. We do that too. Listen, I'm not advocating for this sport to turn into boxing, which it won't. Let me explain something to you. In order for the UFC to become boxing, to have the same amount of belts, let me tell you what would have to happen. The UFC, the PFL, ONE FC, and Bellator resurrected from the dead, all their fighters would be in the same pool, and to become a unified champion of, say, lightweight, you would have to have the PFL belt, the UFC belt, the Bellator belt, and the ONE FC belt. And do that every 3 pounds, that is boxing. The only reason I'm bringing that up is there's always one of those comments that sounds like this. They're just trying to turn the MMA into boxing. No, we are not. We're adding one weight class that exists in every single combat sport other than this one. Not just that. Exists in every other combat sport league other than this one. And that's what I want. I want a 165-pound title. I've been saying this since before I had a title. Not the title. Had a channel. If there is a UFC fighter that the UFC would create a division for, and if they had the excuse to do it, that's one thing. I think fans, we sometimes underrate the amount of, like, sway we have in this community. Do you know how I know we have more sway than, like, what they tell us? Because Dana White made a video kind of as his way of dunking or coping on all of, like, the MMA content creators that cover the sport. Jesse on Fire was on that video. Lucas Tracy was on that video. Dude, and he addressed them like they were part of, like, legit MMA press. That's not even meant to be a shot. Think about this. Lucas Tracy pulls more numbers than most of ESPN, most of corporate MMA journalism is outdone by Jesse on Fire, Lucas Tracy, and MMA Guru. I love this sport because this is probably the only sport that we can do that in, where independent content creators outdo most of the corporate press. I love that because we're the more entertaining version. And we as a fan base did that. They didn't do it. We did that. And the reason that I'm bringing that up is because most of the MMA fan base has kind of come around to be like, yeah, 165-pound division makes a lot of sense. At this point, the only reason that you'd be advocating for a 165-pound title to not exist would be you don't realize just how dumb, like, our weight classes are right now compared to every other combat sport. Or 2, you're a boomer. You're a boomer. If you really think that we're going to be turning into boxing if we add a 165-pound title, I don't know what to tell you. I want a 165-pound title, alter 170 to 175, and make Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor for that title. You have Daniel Cormier kind of like talking about it, hinting at it. Hey, yeah, there's never been an International Fight Week card that was never headlined for a title. You had Chael Sonnen saying the exact same thing. They're tiptoeing around it. I'll just say it. The UFC is playing with the idea of introducing a 165-pound title, and the debut, the 2 people that are going to be fighting for it, are Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler. They're going to be pulling a Ronda Rousey on us. If you remember, Ronda Rousey was basically gifted the title. She was. They want to do the same thing for Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler because at the end of the day, the UFC really hasn't changed all that much. They want to get a title to Conor McGregor because it does numbers. Even if they have to make a division out of nowhere, they will do it. And do you know how I know they're at least playing with this idea? Because they have been talking about this since October of last year. Rafael Fiziev, okay, the guy who, torqued his knee fighting Gamrot, he is talking about making his debut at 165. He's been told by his manager that that's a division in the future. I think they're really going to do it. It's just a matter if they're going to have the clearance of the MMA fans to do that as the main event of International Fight Week. And the fight for the belt is going to be between Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler. And you best believe it. Listen, Dana White is going to be doing he's an atheist, okay? He is going to be doing every pray, every little bit of mysticism, every spiritual calling to ensure that Conor McGregor wins the title. Understand that is what's going to be done. If Conor McGregor manages to beat Michael Chandler and becomes the 165, I think it's either super lightweight or light welt. I like super welterweight. Not super welter. I like super lightweight. I'm going to go with that. Super lightweight champion. The UFC is going to run with that. For the 3 fights that Conor McGregor is going to have, we might actually see Conor McGregor defend the title at some point. But I want to end off this video, this little rant right here, by asking you guys the question. Would you be okay with the UFC creating a 165-pound division, and the first fight for that belt, the first fight in the division, would be Conor McGregor against Michael Chandler at UFC 303? Tell me what you think in the comment section down below. And I just wanted to spitball this question to you because I can tell we're starting to turn this way. And with that out of the way, adios, guys. Have a great day.